that might have sounded weird actually, because I wasn't sure I had my computer muted. I usually just check that the live stream is going, but the mute button kept going on and on and on. However, I think it's going to be a very relaxing live stream. Apart from one thing, I'm waiting for a package to arrive, and it may or may not arrive. It's a company delivering it that are really terrible at finding houses. I've discovered in the past. So half of me is sitting here, the layout of my place now from seeing it on video, but I'm facing a window. And half of me is distracted looking out the window, thinking there's going to be some van sort of aimlessly wandering up and down, incapable of finding my house. Um, but I'm going to try and focus in a gentle way. And the cup of tea that I showed was I just had a cup of tea. And I meant to take a couple of headache tablets with it because I've been out doing plein air stuff all week, every day this week. And in fact, since the beginning of April, I was going to anyway, but I discovered this thing. There's not that many channels doing it actually, called plein air Cruel, which isn't a great title, but it's about just doing plein air every day in April. It's kind of one of these art challenges. And I thought, well, that's not that challenging for me because I was kind of doing it anyway. But it kind of is in a way because I woke up with the toothache the other night, and it persisted, became a pain in one side of my face. And when I thought about it afterwards, I thought, yeah, it might be a toothache, but it might be from being out every day in sometimes inclement weather. It's absolutely glorious today. It knows I'm inside, you see. And it feels wrong to be inside today when the weather's nice. However, um, I do need to take a day off because the pain in my face hasn't quite gone yet. I'm a bit leery of it, but I sometimes get this if I'm out in windy weather, or I get caught in a draft, or I don't dry my hair properly or something, and the slightest little breeze can give me pain in the side of my face. So it could be that. It mightn't be like a toothache at all. Um, Despite the fact that I even did a video on it, dressing well for plein air when you're somewhere where the weather isn't perfect, which is like everywhere. You don't really get perfection. Weather's changeable, that's what it does. But I usually have a hoodie up for it, which protects me from the breeze a lot. But if you're sitting there for maybe hours at a time, and all the little sketches I did, I've been uploading them in shorts, mostly shorts. I had one upload that wasn't a short, and you can see what I'm up to. And I'm working from some of those from last week today, and it's going to be all kind of experimental, right? Because I feel that when you're working with your sketchbooks, that what a sketchbook really is about is it's different from kind of finished pieces, right? A sketchbook is a place where you explore and you develop your art, and can be very focused and concentrated, or it can be very relaxed and quick kind of sketching. But they're not usually kind of finished pieces. And what I've done with a lot of these is this looks like it's trying to be a finished piece, right? But there'd be loads of things I wouldn't be happy with in this. And if I was working on it as a painting, I would do more to it. But because it's plein air stuff and it's my plein air, various sketch pads I have, some of them plein air, some not. Um, I resist when I come back in to what I rather grandly call the studio. Um, I resist messing with them, right? Part of me really wants to mess with them. and keep messing with them. But I resist because I'm aware of this thing about my sketchbooks that I do not want them to try to be finished pieces. Okay. And this is something that I think sometimes people don't always discuss or even grasp about sketchbooks, that um, you can fall into this terrible trap if you consider stuff in your sketchbook as, I must have this page looking beautiful. I must have the next page looking beautiful. I must have everything looking like a finished piece. If you allow yourself to get into that mindset, it can be a trap. And there's loads of traps in art practice, that you can fall into, but that's just one. So, part of my not falling into that trap, even though some pieces look kind of finished-y, they're not to me, right? And there'll be loads of things in these that I go, that didn't, I would have pushed this further, I would have done that. But I do not come back to the studio and do those very deliberately because I'm afraid I'll settle into that pattern, which can very easily become this very serious problem called the fixer-upper sketchbook issue. I just made that up. But there is a fixer-upper sketchbook issue that can arise. I love this page. Um, and the fixer-upper issue can be that you say you're not happy with something. This piece here, there was a lot that didn't kind of work 100%. And I like it as a page, but it's not. If it was making that a finished painting, I'd say, okay, it's not highly successful. I'll do more work on it. Okay, but what I don't want to do is I don't want to come home and start fiddling and messing with it, because some of the spontaneity of being out there is going to go, and some of the fixer-upper aspect is going to come in a way that doesn't happen as much with finished pieces, because you quite often give yourself longer to go through that phase. It's not exactly a fixing up phase, it's more of a middle phase in paintings. But in a sketchbook, you always have a slightly different mindset in a sketchbook. And you're not going to spend usually days and days and days or weeks on a sketchbook page. I mean, there are, really no rules. You can throw out all the rules, but a lot of people have found these same issues come up for them. So what I do, that instead of trying to do a finished painting in this in much less time than I would do a finished painting, and ending up doing fixie-uppy things or glam things to make it look good, um, I say to myself, no, leave it alone. Leave it alone and leave it with the things that I would have liked to work with left unworked, because I do not want to get into it's a fixer-upper situation. And I hope you understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that. But it's definitely something I would think about, as an artist. What is the function for you? What is the function of your sketch pad? Is it to do finished art? Is it to do sketches? Is it to do stuff that you will experiment further with, or that you might do paintings from? What is it? What is a sketchbook doing for you? Do you only work on a sketchbook? Some people do that. They only work on a sketchbook. They just want to have a great time. Um, you know, it's all legitimate. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying there are these traps there. And you have to be, you know, asking yourself these questions all the time. Am I in a little trap? Because sometimes you kind of paint yourself into a corner as well, if I may use a little metaphor. And so, there's lots of stuff in my sketchbook that I don't really like showing them off proudly, like finished pieces. Like this piece, sorry, I just pitched there. Um, this piece here, it looks like it's trying to be a finished piece, and to me it isn't, and I would have to explain to somebody else, and they go, oh, that's very good, you should try to sell that, which is what somebody said to me the other day when I was out, the other week actually, when I was out painting, and it was a nice thing to say. But um I'm not happy with this. As if it were a finished piece, I wouldn't be happy with it, but as a sketch, I'm perfectly happy with it. So the function in my mind, my sketchbook, is to work on something that's exploring something, right? That's the main function, exploring something that I find interesting or exciting. The next function, if it has any more going for it, and it doesn't always, is that it might be something I might want to bring further. And that's what I'm doing today. There were things that happened during the week when I was doing the plein air stuff or plein air pool that I thought, yeah, I think I'd like to bring that further. And in fact, I'm going to do some of that experimentation today because there was a kind of theme came up during the week that I thought, oh, I want to keep moving on and doing something new every day for the plein air sort of challenge. But I do want to do that on the Friday Live because it's something about this week that to me is interesting and exciting and I want to explore. But the other thing that I'll probably be doing, and is a bit high risk, uh, no, not advertising Rosemary and Co. This is a little box that is going to be very handy for a painting that I want to do, and this is going to be a finished piece. And that box is for going to be for transporting it home in because I'm going to do it in oil paint. And it'll be my first uh, completely outdoor oil painting of the year. So it'll be a plein air oil painting for plein air pool. Oh wow, here's the postman. I might have to mute in a second if I see him coming towards my house. Although, oh no, he is not the delivery company I'm expecting it from, so I don't know what's going to happen here, if anything. It's a weird time of day for the postman to be around. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see. Um, there are so many different delivery companies and everything. You don't know who's who anymore. And then they ask you to confirm your address, and you don't know if it's a spammer or not. There's all sorts of kind of obstacles. Now, the thing during the week, oh yes, sorry, I'm all over the place because this silly van has turned up. Here's the thing that I'm thinking about, or was that the thing I was thinking about painting? I don't know. Because no, it's not. It's a thing I was at yesterday. See, I'm going somewhere new every day, right? In this. And I get confused about, oh, I want to do this from it and I want to do that from this piece. And um, this is why I need to slow down, have a cup of tea at home, and get relaxation time to reflect on where I've been and reflect on what I'm going to do with some of this sketchbook stuff. And it was somewhere that I went back to yesterday, actually, that I want to show you for that painting, which is very rash at this time of year, really. It's that bit early for doing a painting completely outdoors. Sorry, I'm looking for this painting to show you. I have a few sketch pads going because it just rained a lot. So I had a lot of waiting for sketch pads to dry time. But I went to this place and thought, this is a place I've been to before, actually. I did a little sketch of this in different lighting, and actually, I'll take it off my wall and show you. Because I really want to reinforce this point that your sketchbook isn't just a frozen moment in time, that you generate more work from it very easily. And that if you're not generating more work from it, um, maybe ask yourself, why not? Is it that it functions as where you do your finished work, which is fine, you know, or um, or is it one of your experimental places? You see. So this is the first piece I did in that place. No, the first piece was a drawing actually, and then I think I went back and did a painting. So I've been twice to that place. I wonder could I find the first drawing. And this is a nice thing to do when you're doing plein air stuff, to go back to the same places all the time. The only thing is I forget which sketch pads have what in them. Oh, there. So there's the first drawing I did of that place. There's a painting I did of it. And this is now the third thing. This is a tonal study I did yesterday. So, returning to the same place, you can find it in different lightings all the time. And that's what's one of the things that's so exciting about plein air. But you also see little themes emerging that are things you want to explore. And I will be exploring if I get to do this, if the weather allows now, I'd need a few more days like this because it'll be something that I might spend a few days on. That oil painting in that spot, I might go to that spot and do it in a few days, 1 or 2 days. Might get it done in one, I don't know. But there's a particular phenomenon going on in this, which is the thing that's exciting to me. And that is, you see the way there are all these dots in this tonal piece, which I had meant to do a color study as well. And I spent so long doing this piece that I didn't get to do the color study. Um, this dottiness is a theme that emerged during the week in other pieces as well. And the reason that it emerged is because all the trees were in full spring here now, and all the trees are starting to break out into these wonderful buds emerging with new green life in them, and they're against backgrounds of, often quite dark looking things and dark trees and boughs and um so it's like, dots of life emerging from dark winter, but also just as a pattern. It's a thing that all week I have been noticing that I'm finding really attractive and want to work on. And in fact, I did in this particular one, I did a painting of this last year. It wasn't 100% successful painting because I did a glazing on it that made it a little bit too dark, and I didn't seem to be able to restore it, but I think that was a skills issue. I just didn't have the skills for it. So I'm happy enough exploring today, trying to work up that particular skill again of that particular thing, that spring buds emerging that I didn't quite get to grips with last year. And I have noticed that because of the amount of self uh, critiquing I do on my art and looking back over my art and experimenting with stuff I have done and going back to the same places and working again or approaching it from a different way, my work has come along so much since last year, I feel, right? Nobody else might be able to see it yet, I don't know. But this is the kind of process, what I'm going to do today is the kind of process that really, really helps your art come along, I think. Now, there's no hard and fast rule for everybody. This is what works for me, but this is why we look at other artists' work to see um, what processes are working for them, and can I borrow any of their processes or anything, to um, help me kind of, um, you know, up my skills a little bit. So this kind of experimentation is very important to me. And even in this piece that I did during the week, that was a really windy day, and I was sitting on my porch for that, and the wind was still getting at me. And oh, we had wind and showers as well. And I was trying to keep a brolly up for some of it while painting, which is a huge challenge. But I actually love that about plein air, that the challenges it presents. Even in this one, that dottiness theme is turning up in little groups of flowers sitting on that green ground. And I want to play with that dotty theme in just a very relaxed, loose, and experimental way. So, um, things I can do. Oh, the postman's long gone, just in case you're wondering. He didn't have a package for me. Things you can do, right? I'd forgotten I had that page in. That's a thing you can do. You can have a start with a colored background, which has some relevance to what you're doing, that one would actually be usable because in relation to this, if you have a look at this, one of the mediums that I had for use today, and you might have these around the place yourself, was these soft pastels. These are quite a cheap pastel, but if you look at um, these will go over watercolor, okay, and they would go over gouache, okay, as well. But obviously, I didn't want to do this kind of thing in my sketchbook. But it's for experimentation. It's a quick way of experimenting with something without getting caught up in spending days on your experiment, you know. And the background color makes sense because in this piece, um, there was a big shadow across the foreground from, I think it was a cast shadow from the house. The sun must have been behind the house, striking from over here. And I was trying to capture the whole lot fairly quickly before the sun changed too radically. But I mean, it's not highly successful because somebody else mightn't even see that cast shadow very well. But that color would work well as the cast shadow if you wanted to redraw this in pastel. And as you can see on the rough paper, the pastel shows that dark paper through it. So it's good for suggesting glass, you know, and you can put in your other stuff in pastels as well if you want. For instance, in these pastels, just while I'm on the theme, and these are one of the cheapest. Reeves are one of the cheapest pastel, soft pastel sets, but they're grand, you know. I don't use them often. I used to use pastels a lot. I'm just trying to match colors here. I think I could match most colors actually in that because I didn't mean to go in like this when I imagined what the live stream was going to be like, but why not, you know? Um, so some of the colors of those um floral bits can actually be done in pastels. Now this is I didn't like the sketch pad very much. I got it last year and I brought this up the mountains with me on an overnight camping expedition and used it, and it was okay for the purposes because when you look at it, it did handle mountains really well. That paper, I actually made that charcoal myself and brought it with me, but it does mountains really well because the cragginess of the paper actually works in your favor, but it isn't hugely adaptable. It's nice. Whoops, sorry. It's nice with this is a very long piece. Nice with watercolors as well, but very hard to control and very, as you can see, really soft paper. So if you're looking for a lot of detail in something, really tricky. So I haven't used that much since. However, um, the really rough paper for an experimentation day, that's one thing that could be great because it keeps you working very loosely with things and, you know, reaching for materials that you mightn't normally work with. Look at me and my getting over my fear of purple. Except that look at how evil purple is. It ripped the paper. This is another thing about that paper. It just shears off. That's an Archway 100% cotton rag paper um, that I really don't like for these kinds of falling apart qualities. Another YouTuber, I saw her video and she had recommended it, and it worked for her, you see, but didn't work. It doesn't work for me with some of the things that I'm doing. Um, but it's still good to have a great variety of papers. And one of the things I have today is rice paper, and I'll be looking at how I could use that experimentally as well. I have a few greens in this set. There are, considering it's really such a small set, you get really nice colors in it. Look at that green. It's a slightly different green in between the other two. that you get. Oh, hang on, you don't get another green. There are two greens, so that's more towards a viridian than this kind of very spring green. But you get like an ochre that's a very decent orange as well. And you, oh, my screen went black there. Don't know what that's about. That happened last time as well. Um, so I really like the color range in those. I do think that they are a nice set to get, but do get yourself an extra light if you're a tonal sort of a person like me. But they're still. I haven't bought those in ages, but I haven't used them in ages either. But they're still a nice set. You know, they don't have everything in them. Like there's a maybe there was. There must have been originally a red in there. I must have. See, I have lots of pastels, and I might have put them out. I'm not seeing a red in the set. There was a black. Yeah, I think there was a red in there beside the orange. Is that a red? Sometimes you can't. Yeah, sometimes you can't see the color through other things. There's the red. So you would need, if you were using those, you would need a fixed. So I did say that I was going to do watercolor today. So I am going to do watercolor. But because it's experimentation, it's watercolor and pastel, and you can use them together. Now, as I say, I could have worked with these in my sketchbooks, but I didn't want to get into fixer-up situation. So isn't that nice? I do like that. It's very you know, loud experimentation going on. But it was this quality of colours being isolated in sort of dots of areas with other things around them was something I wanted to play with more. And sometimes you don't know what you're going to do with something, but I know that this kind of mark making and everything, it turns up in paintings, maybe in not such a loud way as my loose kind of experimentations. And as you can see, making these kind of an abstract thing, you know, um, because I'm just kind of saying, well, what is the quality in that during the week really appealed to me? So that's one way to do it with the pastels. And as I say, you might need fixed it for that if if you want to keep it in okay nick. I have other things. That's an old experiment from earlier in the year, but I didn't get it stuck into a sketchbook yet. Um, I like having these. These are handy for doing finished pieces, but also that was a piece that I had for background color for gouache painting. And in fact, I might bring that out with me on a plein air expedition with me, because it's very handy having that underpainting. And I had forgotten, I must not have that much of a fear of purple, because I was using that last year in the summer as an underpainting color, without much fear. So that might get a look in again. Rice paper, another nice material to work with, and we might do a little bit on rice paper today, so I might leave some of that out. And I have a little piece of white felt that I usually use with that. Another thing that's very handy for experimentation days is this is an eco-dyed piece of paper, which just means you get things from the natural environment around you, wrap them up in a sheet of paper, and then you steam the piece of paper in a pot that you're not going to use for anything edible afterwards, unless you're absolutely certain that the plants in it don't leave a taste on the pot or poison you. And you can paint on that afterwards, you see, but I'm not going to use that today. That was from another experimentation day. So you see the difference how abstract things can get on experimentation days, because you're playing with um your unconscious mind and your sort of dragging things out of what it is that appeals to you about something, you know. So let's get the watercolors out, and I actually have two watercolor sets at the moment, but I'm going to get the Cotman Studio set out first and do a little playing with that. That's what I did this one in, but I want to take the section of this that really interests me, which is this bit here. The bit with the bluey, purpley, and the green, and some of the red probably, but it's the isolation of that bluey purple that I want to enjoy. And I think afterwards, just working in a very relaxed way on this is going to help me with the oil painting that I plan to do, my spring oil painting for Plain April. Yeah, they should have just called it Plain April and not Plain April, because it's so hard to pronounce Plain April. These always look like they've gone out of shape, but then when you dip them, they tend to recover fast. See? And they're my current favorite thing. There's another one in here, which I'm only still getting used to. This one, which was a replacement for another one I had like that, which still works, but it's about half that length now. Um, and I'm not used to that one quite yet. So I'm going to get my purpley color going first. And I have to find a little spot that'll work for me. My lord. Because the camera is down so low, it's almost in the way. So let me just play with the purple for a while first, and you can get to see what this rag cotton paper is like. This is Purple Lake in this Cotman Studio set, which is a kind of a dull purple. But the purple I want is, they have a blue in this set that's called Intense Blue, and it's actually a cerulean blue or cyan blue. And that's kind of the color of those little plants. And the color is very striking. I really liked it. But I didn't get the color from those really well, because there's the intense blue on a different paper. You see how it behaves differently. And the purple lake, those mixed, the purple lake isn't a very vibrant kind of a color. So you don't get the vibrancy. The thing I liked about those hyacinths in the garden was that they scintillated beautifully, especially against the green. Even though green, I wanted to kind of think about this as well, some of the scintillation that was happening in the dots, because I wanted to think about it in relation to the color wheel. With this, the bluey purple, right, violet blue, we'll say, um, really shouldn't be scintillating that much against a green background, because that's not, its opposite on the color wheel. But it actually does, because the nature of that particular color, and every color has context. So it's the context of everything around it which makes a color really interesting. And that's why, for me, I wanted to explore this subject in a very relaxed way. And I'm going to get out my other, I'm not having more tea, but I do love the cup. Isn't that pretty? I'd love a whole set of willow pattern, but I probably wouldn't drink that small a cup of tea. So at the moment, I'm not using that cup. Mo isn't going to do it. I have a color in here that I want to use. I think Purple Lake is what I have in the set. Permanent Rose might be the color I need. I'm going to use a little bit of that and show it to you. So I kind of look like, and I am in a way, oh, I think I had it out. Look. I kind of doesn't, but in another way, my unconscious mind is doing a lot of work here. A kind of a non-thinking think. It's working a problem out. And this is a bit like I told you last week that I have dreams about painting that I really enjoy. And it's a bit like that. It's like that experience because I'm just watching things happening on paper without doing too much reflecting. Now, I had a few blues, and I cannot remember which blue I was using to get my very intense purpley color. And of course, it's watercolor, so yeah, that's the color there. I think that was the best I could get intensity wise or glow wise. But they were much more, they were actually still very dead looking compared to. I mean, in this one, I was trying to get it um by a blue with the red, and that was actually working better. We'll try that. I want to think, I see, try to let myself process why something is working and why something else isn't working. So then um, once I put in that blue, the intensity came out. Even was it the right color I had? Permanent rose. It's opera rose is the one that's very a vibrant color. I found that in watercolors, pink flowers. There are certain watercolors that you have to buy extra tubes to actually get the intensity for roses and things like that to get the intensity of the color. Sometimes I'm just putting the color on pure to see. Yeah, that's more like it there when I put the colors on separately. It's got more of the quality I want of the glow. But I'm going to do a few of those and then put green around them. So this is the intense blue color here. But I'm going to do another thing with this, and that is do it on different papers. This is part of the experiment with color because look how different it is already on. This is what kind of paper is this? Aquapad, which I love. I'm kind of looking for a new watercolor paper as well. For my botanical sketch pad, I stick in botanical pieces that I do, and I have a lot of spring flowers coming up at the moment. I have another tulip come up that I want to paint, and um, I'm experimenting with new papers. So, for example, I have a Fabriano, a cream colored Fabriano in here somewhere as well. And I'm going to save that actually for the other subject I'm going to paint in a minute. Um, but that intense blue, look at the color it's turned the water already. Turning the water intense blue. Um, so that's going to affect the pink as well, you see. I'm going to trying to keep this pink isolated a little bit. But this is why we had the tea at the beginning. You see why I love this paper? Look at that. Look at that blend. So pretty. Just makes me happy, this paper, the type of control you have over things. But as I say, I'm looking for another paper as well. Um, I think it's Liano is the name of the Fabriano paper that a lot of botanical watercolorists use. And I want to try that sometime. Let's try. I hate to go near this again because I love it as it is, but this is the thing to really like about watercolor. Um, some of the accidental stuff that it does, and some of the whoops, I just dropped something. Some of the cauliflowering it does can be nice too, if you want to go with that. You know, you could pick up extra water off that, or that's why I knocked the thing over. Um, Dry your brush a little bit out on a cloth if you don't want that. But I like it, and it's doing what I wanted to do rather better than the other paper was. So I'm gonna just do a few more of those because this was a thing that I wanted to explore. Color wise, this one is going to be quite a strong one. And when I'm working on multiple sheets like this, I like it because I'm just going to go fancy on this one because it's blue. They do have fancy edges. Um, when you're working on multiple sheets, you can bounce around a bit from one thing to another. There's nothing exciting on this though happening that I'm loving yet. Um, and I don't know, do I want to start? Do I even want to start? I'll do a rice paper one just to show you because it's repetitive. I'm doing the same thing because it's this section here I'm exploring. But where did I put my rice paper now? I took it out. But I'm trying it on different papers, and different things are going to happen on the different papers, aren't they? I don't want a piece like that small. So the other thing I want, if I can find it, is my piece of felt that I have for that kind of painting of rice paper. I knew I saw it around this. This just protects the soakage a little bit because the rice paper gets soaked very quickly because it's so thin, you see. But the paint behaves differently on it as well. And in fact, we can do another little experiment with our dots. And these are really easy little experiments to do, and this is kind of a rest day as well for me. But it's rest with having fun. I'm using the side that has the tooth on it, which I think is probably the better side. This is a having fun day as well, okay? So it's going to hopefully restore all my energy for going back outside painting, and even make me feel energetic enough for oil painting. Give me a rest from my pain in my face, which isn't that bad. I don't want to sound like a whinger about it, but it's not too bad. It's just a day off was all it needed, a day off from weather outside. Probably would have been okay today. I don't think there's much of a breeze. And I want that pink to go in here as well. I'm going to get out the Kuretake set in a second to show you that on the rice paper. I've only got the blue and the purple now, but I haven't forgotten that it was the green around it was very interesting to me as well. So I just need to give some things time to dry. I don't know that the rice paper will, but I want to show you, if I can, that there might be a difference between the Kuretake paint and the Cotman paint on that rice paper, because a lot of people who are very interested in that Kuretake set, and the set I have is the what's it called? It is called, there's a Zig palette, but that's not the one I have. Oh, Art Nouveau palette is the set I have of colors. And a lot of people said that, it behaves strangely. It is different I found it different from ordinary watercolors, okay? Or, like English watercolors, if you like. So let me get the Kuretake set. And in fact, I have two sets because I also bought the Zig. Well, I just really pushed the boat out. I couldn't bear not to have the Zig either. Once I had the Art Nouveau set. And the Zig is like your kind of, well, when I say standard palette colors, I just mean that they're not pastel colors, really. They're not colors that are tonal, that have white in them. A lot of the Art Nouveau set have white in them. Here's the Kuretake set of the Zig. Isn't that pretty? So I'm going to try and find there are loads of purples, but I ended up having to label them in English to actually distinguish what's what. And I also did things like, let's see, these are the Winsor Newton swatches I did, but I did swatches like this for Kuretake as well to stick into, they're actually under the bottom of this pile here, and I'm too lazy to go showing it to you because I have to move everything. But they're very handy to keep my botanical sketch pad because I can take them out to reference the colours, which I otherwise wouldn't be able to see properly in the palette because they're not really standard colours. Like the burnt sienna here, have a look at this. Look, there's some sort of mislabeling going on there because that's a purple colour, isn't it? It's a reddy purple. It's like an alizarin nearly. Wouldn't call it burnt sienna, you know. And the purple, the one labelled purple, is a brown. It's like a Van Dyke brown. So it's a bit odd. You do need to swatch them. When you look at those two rows, they just all look like dark colours. I mean, I can't tell what's what. There's a cobalt violet, and it looks just black on the palette. But that's actually a good colour for my my little dots for flowers, but it's not like terribly violet. Um, I do like the blue. So that's a cerulean blue, according to them, which is not unlike this other blue that I used down here, which was called intense blue in Cotman. They're both based on a kind of a cyan blue model. So I'm going to use that and find a purple. That's a bit dead, that purple. Again, how the problem in that pink range with watercolors, you know, it's hard to find something intense. And the other feature of these Kuritakis is uh, they don't need as much water to activate. The binder is different in them. It's a gelatin binder rather than a honey, or what else do they use as a binder? Gum arabic in your English watercolors. So that's going to behave differently. Wait, let's see if I have another purple. Imperial violet might be more purpley for me. Wait, let's see. Yeah, that's a more intense purple, isn't it? I'd like to show you. You can mix as well. Let me show you something up here that I got. Seeing as how this is experimentation. This is something I haven't really experimented with yet. It's a new palette. And I bought this palette just for using with the Kuretake. Because what a lot of people do with the kuretake is this. If I get some of my imperial violet, I can do that. Just mix up a lot of it at the consistency that I want. And I have seen people like Vivi Gonzalez, who's a very um, good kind of illustration style artist, really, who works with kuretake sets. I've seen her use kuretake a lot, and she does really nice mixes of lovely colors. She mixes in this way where she'll mix it up to the right consistency in little wells like that. She has a bigger kind of a mixing palette, but that seems to work quite well for the kuretake, that you mix it to the consistency you want, you see. So if I wanted a thinner mix, I'd use a different well. You see the way the well will hold the water, and that's a very light version. So, it's just different. The Cotman doesn't really require you to do that. Use wells if you're okay just doing it on your palette that comes with the thing, but this one seems to benefit from that. And yeah, I don't know, they're just a bit deader, but I can come along and decide if I want to mix reds in with them, see a carmine in with that might actually work better. No, it's still a bit dead. So the opera rose, you can't beat the opera rose or and that color permanent rose I was using for the intensity of those flowers. This is a rose madder I've settled on here for this. And you see the way you want to be quick if you don't want to get a linear thing going. Um, you can't lift from the rice paper as handy as you can from that kind of paper, because although it stays wet longer, it sort of stains it more like an ink, because the rice paper is really it's kind of like a sumi kind of medium for ink, really, but those watercolors are developed for use with mulberry paper, which I haven't painted on it yet, but I've started using for a sculpture project that I'm doing. And mulberry paper is really fascinating because it's got strands of things in it. So I should actually experiment with painting that as well. Hopefully, I'll have some of that paper left over after the sculpture thing that I'm doing, and I'll be able to experiment with that. Okay, so I want to change my water because I've gone on to green. So I'll get some fresh water. And really, I'm just looking at my pages and enjoying how they look. This my favorite paper, still my favorite paper, of course. Look, but I do like the Cotman on the rice paper. I actually like it more than the kuretake, the way the kuretake is behaving. But you never really know with rice paper until it's dry. So this is the thing that I do quite often. I shift what surface I'm working on when I'm having experimentation sessions, because it just freshens you up so well. And I'm going to play around now with my greens. We'll put the rice paper aside for a minute. So I want that to have slightly more drying before I go near that again. And I'm going back to the Cotman set for a minute. And I want that a lot more yellow. And in that set, They give you a lot of yellows, but not very many greens. And I suppose this is in the theory that you can mix up from two basic greens, your warmer kind of sap green and your, well, I don't know if it is sap green, I forget, and your viridian with um, these, uh, whatever choice of the yellows you want, that you're going to be getting uh, fairly nice greens out of those to match whatever it is you want. So I wanted to go more yellowy. So whatever the mid green was in that. I'm still very much getting used to this set, but I'm really enjoying playing with it at the moment. So I like that kind of green, so I'm gonna mix it a bit more of that. And this is a bit like what I did for my body this morning, which was have a nice bath. And this is like having a nice refreshing bath for your art senses doing this. So it's a perfect Friday kind of relaxation thing to do, this experimentation session. But I don't know, maybe like me, when somebody says experimentation, you kind of, that even that sounds a bit stressful because it sounds like you have to be very inventive in order to manage to be experimental. And you don't really, because what you did during the week, if you were doing the plein air thing, for example, what you did during the week, whatever you were working on, should have sparked something of interest to you. There must have been something in what you did during the week if you were working that was interesting to you, and that you might have thought, it might have either stayed with you like a plot of a good book that never got delivered. That'll be next. What day? No, I was going to say it'd be next Tuesday before it'd be delivered, but that's some other company that only delivers once a week. And this is Friday, so let's hope they're not a company that only delivers on Friday. See, the way I was talking about something being in context, that a color, m- you know, has a context and matters in context. See how this blue came alive when the green went on. The other blues didn't come that alive, except the darker one here. The pinks I was never really happy with, to be honest, which I never found a pink that scintillated in the way that they did when I was looking at them. I am sort of remembering what I did during the week, and the whole week has become like a lovely dream. And this is the difference, I think, between somebody who goes out in the landscape and does the thing out there and somebody who goes out in the landscape for a minute, takes a photo, and comes back in and works from that. Um, that person who does the second thing has a difficulty that they might have trouble remembering as much as the person who goes out to do it. Because even if my memory is wrong or very subjective, let's say, about the scene, I was out there for a long time looking at it, wasn't I? Not just looking, but painting it or drawing it or whatever I was doing. Whereas the person who took a photograph came back in, and the photograph is what they're having the experience with. They had a very, very short experience with the actual scene. And this is where you have to remember that plein air means outside. That's what plein air drawing or painting is. It's painting outside. And somebody can come along and, ooh, I like the green that turns into when I put this other green over it. That's very nice, isn't it? So that bit of the lawn would have been much better handled doing that layer there, look, because the transition would have been just better. And I didn't really get the transition well there. So just playing around helps me sort some issues out and doesn't solve other things. But we see how they're really nice in context. It's still not a finished painting or anything, but I get thinking time or non-thinking time, depending on how you want to look at it. I'm liking the purple lake more than I did, though. Let's try more purple lake over other colors. It's a very subtle color, purple lake. Hmm, it's not liking it that much. Yeah, over that. What color did I use there? I think it might have been a carmine. It's nice over the carmine. It was that these are the sort of flowers that scintillate between purple and pink, and that is what's super interesting about them to me. To get it to do that without deadening the color completely. It did there, you see, it did deaden the color there. Wasn't using the same kind of blue though, I was using a different blue. Try it on that one. I should have really let that dry a little bit before I tried that trick, but there you go. Hmm. Yeah, it's still a very, that's the better pink, really. And, sometimes I'm just pausing just to look at the thing. And, it's a very garish example of it, but what I'm enjoying is the contrasts between the background and the foreground that is making it scintillate in and out. And I want to explore that, you see. That's part of my exploration. I'm going to get rid of that and let it dry because that's as much as I want to have a look at that one. And when I'm finished these, I might have them all on the same page because I never really get rid of anything that I work on. Um, so these, I'm thinking now are kind of begging to be collaged together. They just look like they want to be. So let's do the same again. Yeah, that's the kind of. Another thing I like that watercolor does is this thing of coming up to an edge of something and how you can change that color at the edge but leave the middle alone. I find that effect just, I always find that really satisfying with watercolors. I'm afraid to go near this edge though because it's not dry yet there. I put it on so thick. Don't want bleed on these because I'm enjoying the separateness of them. And I think a lot of people like this about watercolors, the delicate quality and the sometimes accidental quality of the marks in them. I'm going to leave that alone. I might go a bit darker with it actually. I'm just looking at it and I think I'd like that to be nearer to the tonal value, if you like, lightness or darkness of the blues, because I think that was part of the quality that made them scintillate so well was the fact that they were around the same tonal values. So hopefully you see what it is I'm exploring. And sometimes I think it really helps with your exploration if you know what it is you're either trying to get at in your exploration, not necessarily an end point, but um, what you're examining. And that's definitely what I was examining. So I like this. Look at it. It's sort of to me now that has the quality that those um, I was going to say bluebells. I actually don't know the difference between hyacinths and bluebells because they look very similar to me. The colors of the bells look the same to me, but I think they might have been hyacinth. The flowers, a type of hyacinth. Um, the scintillation that I was only getting kind of hinting at there is coming up better in that. And obviously I've foregone, the complications of drawing it properly and everything. But in terms of just what the quality was that I wanted, uh, it's definitely mirrored what I wanted. So that piece and then the other piece, they'll be collaged together some way. And then this as well. So this is the Cotman version, and this one is the Kuretake. And I should actually, if I can locate a pencil, I might mark it on them. And if I'm lucky, I might be able to locate the brush that I had in my hand not 2 seconds ago as well. But did I hear it drop? Yeah, I did. Okay, so we're going with the green, and then I'm going to move on because you're probably getting bored. But when you're doing your experiments, take your time, really immerse yourself in them, and enjoy them as much. Spend as much time as you need on them. Am I going to go dark with that one? I might not. I might see what it's like slightly lighter. And I'm going up over the edge again because I like that effect for the scintillation of the color, because that's how they behaved out there. They did weird things against the background. I might like a two-tone background on this one actually. Have it slightly patchy because I can play with the scintillation idea. And when you're relaxed like this, you're going to get more ideas for I might do this, I might do that, and you've plenty of time to do it. And you're in your studio, and the howling wind and rain, so it's very comfy, isn't it? It's a very comfy Friday experience. But yeah, I think the other thing, apart from doing an oil painting before the end of the month outdoors, that I might do, and I'm really going to be hoping to be lucky with the weather to be able to do these things, but is a picnic. I'd like to have a picnic, plan April picnic, a painting picnic. Wouldn't that be nice? I might go into my Viridian blue to get a Viridian green to get a more bluey green patch or two in here, just to see how that mottledy effect works. And I started the year with this kind of an experiment now that I think of it. I was uploading a video every day at one stage near the beginning of the year, a warm up kind of video. There were sort of 10-minute pieces that were warm ups. So they were like this kind of idea. So they're not very finished paintings, but they kind of interesting. I'm gonna let that dry. Get Kuretake out. Kuretake one. Find my pencil to write the fact it's Kuretake, so I know which one it is at the end, because I will also be looking at them at the end in the same way as I look at my sketch pads to see, do I want to do anything else with this? Is it interesting? Why was I thinking about this? And I'm not confident that I would be able to tell the difference without the label. So where did I put the curve? And I got acres of greens in this one. There's a very nice sap green. don't know if it's bright. Yeah, it's a very nice green that I like. This was the one that I thought the blue wasn't really zoomy enough. Even though it is a cerulean, it just doesn't have the sort of strength in it that the Cotman had. I don't know, would I buy a Kuretake set? Um, if I knew what they were like. Because when I got the Cotman, oops, I'm tipping the wrong sort of thing. When I got the Cotman set and started working with it on the first day, I then said to myself, oh yeah, I'm loving this. Whereas with the Kuretake, I kept saying, oh, this color isn't doing what I'm expecting. But then again, I reserved my judgment on the set because it can take you a long time to get used to a new material, and that is a very different kind of a watercolor than I'm used to, you see. They're a Gansei Tambai style watercolor. And as I explained, the binders are different in them. They behave differently. And the colors are not what you'd expect when you see, the sap green is sap green, really, but some of the colors are not quite what you would expect. So there's a few surprises in them, you see. So that's nice. It's getting to see the context matters. So just the blue on their own, you could be all day struggling with the intensity, but you put the green in, and that blue starts doing its little scintillating thing that I wanted it to do. The other color that was scintillating was this against a dark green, that pink. And I'm probably not going to play with that today. There was one other thing I wanted to play with, so I'll go. To somebody else, they might say, why are you doing that? What's the meaning behind what you're doing there? When you're experimenting, you don't really have to justify to yourself or anybody else what it is you're trying to get at. You don't even have to really know or be sure. It's the same as when you're working with your sketch pad. You don't have to be sure about what you're doing. You don't have to be sure about how you want it to look when it's finished. Um, it is an exploratory thing to do, right? There's one simple thing I want to do before I move on to working on another color piece, because I want to show you this. And some people don't watch shorts at all, so they might not have seen this already. But I'm going to do this on my favorite watercolor paper. Just have to be careful that I'm not going to smudge the first piece that I did. I'll work upside down, that might. And I'm going to work on this again at a bigger scale and just show you something about it. And I'm going to do one other thing, although this might not dry the way I want it to. I mightn't be able to find it in the first place. Oh yeah, I know where it is. I took this little brush in here because this brush is slightly wrecked. I would have preferred to use one with a plastic rubber top on it, because what I planned to do was use masking fluid, which I didn't use on that, but I could have if I wanted a full range of tones. I'm getting defeated again by a safety top. I'm forever getting defeated by those tops. So what I want to do here is preserve some areas of white. Okay, I don't think that'll be that long drying. I'm going to do another piece. Well, I looked, I managed to pick up a bit of the blue from the other side. I'm going to do another piece while I'm here. And that is the piece down by the river. Uh, which sketch pad is it in? This piece. And I'm going to preserve some of the buds on the trees in white. So I want to put that in now. This takes a few minutes to dry. So, I mean, it's great. You can do multiple experiments, can't you? And be letting one of them dry. But the reason I'm using an old brush on this is this absolutely wrecks brushes, this stuff, this masking fluid. So it's a good thing to use your old brushes on, though. Now, actually, these areas that I'm masking here, in this picture, they weren't white when you look at them. But I want to be able to do a wash of dark because I'm working in watercolors. A wash of, well, mid-tone, really, I think. And save myself the bother of trying to go around all those, which I was doing with gouache because I don't know if it's just my gouache. Could be because it's a cheap gouache. I'm not sure. But I have this issue going on with gouache that when I layer it, when I layer the really pale colors, mine are a Hemi Maya gouache. When I'm layering my pale colors over a mid or darker tone, I'm having trouble preserving the lightness of the color. So that tonally, some of my gouache paintings are turning out to not have as much of a range of tones in them as I meant them to, if you see what I mean. The black was going okay, but I had to do a couple of passes of the black to make it go okay. So that was an issue that might be an issue with those particular gouaches because I did see someone else mention that. So I think, and because this is an old brush, look, I've never had that happen. And funny because I was doing sewing this morning and a needle broke as well. So perhaps I'm just being oafish today. I don't know. So let's see if this is dry at all yet. I don't want to pass a good brush, a good paintbrush across that. Let's put the lid on that because that stuff also is very wasteful if you don't get the lid on properly. Okay, and I am running slightly late now. Again, I was going to keep this to an hour, but you can see where I'm going. And where I'm going next, I might get rid of that water and get fresh again because I'm going monochrome. And something that uh, I have also been going back to doing recently because I have done this before is doing as well as what I would call color studies of a scene, doing tonal studies of a scene. So in a tonal study of a scene, you sketch away or paint away, but you're painting in a monochrome, one color. And that's this stuff here, art graph, is kind of nice for that because it is it's graphite. You know the way you buy graphite pencils, but this is a graphite that you can paint on like a watercolor rather than using a pencil. I'm afraid to go near that bit because I don't want my brush wrecked and it's not quite dry. So it goes from very, very pale grey to very dark. And the other day, I haven't used this enough either. I've been buying a lot of new materials, trying out a lot of new materials and really enjoying it. But in this sketchbook, I love the sketchbook, but it's not actually a sketchbook. That's a notebook. Look how thin the paper is in it. And it's very waterproof as the outside, which is great, very waterproofy. I absolutely love it. But the paper is sometimes lets me down because of how thin it is. And this wouldn't allow me to work it too much when I was out without the paper starting to give up the ghost. And I wasn't sure how black it was going to let me go because it allowed me to work in layers, but and it gets blacker if you layer. If I wait till that dries and I put another layer on it, I can get a much blacker black. But because that paper in my sketch pad was breaking up a bit, I wasn't sure how black it was going to let me go. Now, sometimes people say, you know, graphite wouldn't give you as black a black as, say, an India ink or even a black oil pastel or something. And there's no reason why you couldn't work with either of those media that I just mentioned over that if you wanted to. But I just resisted doing that when I went home because I didn't want to work towards a finished painting for the reasons I talked about earlier. But I want to see if this goes blacker on this really dark paper. And I want to see how it behaves as well. So I'm going with this dotty business again. And something I really like about this little art graph watercolor thingy is when it settles onto the page, it has a wonderful quality that's not quite watercolor and isn't pencil, but it's got a slightly granulated, very, very fine granulation. And there's a person on YouTube who does lovely paintings in this as well. And I'm not sure, is it Per Fleur is her name? She does scenes from movies in black and white in this stuff. And she gets an amazing amount in the range. But if you look at that, look at where I put the dots. It's just the spread of it is beautiful on that particular paper. And it's got a lovely quality. And when I rub that masking fluid off, the white bits that are preserved are going to be lovely because I've got a darkest area, which it might go even darker than that if I wait till that dries before I put on more. But I think time is going to stop me from doing it on this live stream. But I've got a mid grey and a lightest tone. And when you're doing a tonal study of something, that would be the least you would do. And it's a good starting point, I think, for a tonal study. Say this was a tree and this was the foliage, to look for the lightest bits, the mid tone, and the darkest tone in your tonal study. And then when you will start seeing all the tones in between. And particularly when you're out painting or drawing a lot, you start seeing even more. Your observational skills become even better. Um, and you can start getting more tones in, but you usually start with those first three tones, you see. But that's lovely stuff to use. I'm just going to end now with the color thing. But the point of doing tonal studies, just before I get off the subject, is to break up the problem of painting a scene because you've broken it up first into, well, how light or dark is each area. And then you've come along and you might do little color notes for something. I had a few videos where I was doing color notes. Um, and that's just dealing with the problem of color, mixing colors. And then, you might have a sketch like this that has like the two things going on, but that's still just a sketch. It's not like a finished piece in itself. Doesn't mean you can't do a finished piece in your sketchbook. You could if you got your act together and you want to. So in this color one, I'm going to go for the mid-tone first. The other thing I could do, like in something like that, is um, I can also use, you see these? I'll actually use it on the edge of this to show you what I'm talking about. So they are oil pastels, and they will go over watercolor, okay, and they'll go over gouache, okay, as well. So um, they'll work, and the other yolks we're using will work. These, but the soft pastels won't go over oil pastels, really. So you see the way it's avoiding the oil pastel there. All it's doing is helping to blend the oil pastel a bit. But you can exploit those properties, you see, and you can still see a bit of the watercolor in between. So you can do all kinds of things like that. Could be the grass, on front of things. Um, you could use a white to reestablish whites, and I could, if I, you know, go too dark on a watercolor here for the lightest bits, bring it up with that. And I could have done it in there. I'll just show you in a little tiny bit. I'm not, because I don't want to rework this one. But you see the way I've managed to bring up, I'll just bring it in a bit. I've managed to bring up the color a little bit there again, lift the color. So really, I should probably bring that out with me sometimes on my plein air. Maybe I will, because that's a recurring problem with the gouache I find when I go out. So to finish, we're going to do a little bit with this, pushing this a bit. And there was actually a color that really, this one, it was color I wanted to explore. And it was a wonderful color here. I probably won't get to do everything I want with this, but there was a wonderful color that I wanted to look at, and it was made from a raw sienna with a little bit of red, which, or orange even, or an orangey red, or even light red, which is in that. Yeah, light red is quite nice. And I'm just going to water it down quite a bit before I do it there. There, that's the color. I wanted to explore that color because that color was coming up in my painting, the one that is featured in the short called, I think it was Plein Air by the Weir. And it was that color with a very pale, maybe that green there. So you see, this is why I'm not going to get to do everything today, because that's not even dry yet. But I might get to do some of that. You see people doing this with hair dryers and things like that. I'm going to put in a tiny bit of something darker in here, just to get some of the range of colors. And I am finding a lot of use for that purple lake, I have to say. It's nice. And I have a couple of nice browns in the cotton set that I really like as well. But there's a little bit of purple lake in with the brown there. So you see the way that's avoiding the masking fluid. And when you, can I even do it over here to show you? No, it's not really dry, see. So I'm not going to be able to show you what I mean properly, just in case you've never used that stuff before. Um, when it's properly dry, you come along and I can put in that very bright green in very handy on those sections, and they will pop really nicely in a way that I was finding it, the way I was having to paint this, not conducive to painting. I mean, if it was an oil painting, I would be very happily able to put in my browns and my pinks just straight across, and then come along with my dabs of pale green and put them in afterwards. But I wasn't able to do it with the gouache because I knew that that kind of a pale color, um, you have to put on so many layers of it in the, definitely with the Himalayas that I have, that it just becomes a pain, and it's very hard to get it up to the tonal value that you want, let alone the color. So I did it by actually going around the areas that I wanted to leave white, which makes for a very stilted drawing, really, you know. It's fun to do because what you're doing basically is this. You're drawing little circles and then doing a little kind of a coloring in job in between the circles. But it's you know, you can see how that leads to rather stilted kind of a drawing. Be much less stilted if you could just go straight across, as I did here, having preserved the paler area you wanted to. And as I say, this is why I love oil painting, because you don't have those kind of things getting in the way of what you're doing. It comes with its own difficulty. I can't really do a whole lot here either because it won't dry. But maybe a couple of the spots are showing up there okay now. So you can see the white bit preserved. Now, if you were doing a tonal study of something, those white bits wouldn't really be preserved completely if it was a tonal study of that. And if you look at I have very little white in the trees, or cream because it's pale cream paper. I waited till it's dried and gone back over it to bring it down to the tone that I want. I haven't just left it white. So that's the difference maybe between a tonal study, but you're caring more about matching the tone than you are about how the overall drawing looks in a tonal study. Although it happened to turn out looking nice enough. I thought it was okay. Um, but you're looking to match the tones, and it was only bits of the sky that got to stay white. And in fact, I gave up at this stage, but that should have been much darker because it wasn't as pale as the sky, the grass. But because I was having to wait for things to dry, it was quite a slow process. So it was, I'd be working away over here maybe while I was waiting for something to dry, but it takes ages for something to dry. So like I was there maybe hour and a half, 2 hours, so like you're getting tired at that stage and tummy grumbling and everything. We don't all have the stamina of somebody like Turner. Um, but that's it. I got to explore the dottiness more, and I would definitely be working with that again in a painting. I mean, it turned up in everything. It even turned up in this one of the gorse, and it's definitely a spring theme. So a painting that's kind of about that, which is going to be a painting of this scene, but it's going to those dots. It's going to have the theme. Um, of light and new buds, light flitting through in dots of the buds receiving light from things. That's kind of how I'm thinking about what the focus is going to be of that painting that I want to do. And that's a spring theme, isn't it? New growth kind of thing. So that was my experimentation. So I'm not going to do it now because I haven't quite finished letting this dry. I'm going to cut out various things, and all of those will end up on the same sketch pad piece. And, I'll mark them that they had to do with the plein air um, sketches of the week, whatever it was. But I still get to experiment, you see, when I'm collaging them together because I have to make decisions about what way they're going to look together. And everything you do, it does end up kind of a finished piece because it's framed somehow in your sketchbook. You have framed it somehow. So you could kind of argue that everything's finished. But experimentation is a fun thing to do. I highly recommend it to people, and it helps you bring things further in your art, and bring you places that probably lead to bigger works or more finished pieces. Okay, so have a great weekend, whatever you're doing. And I did run a bit over time, but you don't mind. Okay, see ya.